Heyo everybody, Haku here with my live reaction for Tower of God Season 3, Chapter 72, or Episode 72, overall Chapter 489. This one once again has a warning. This episode contains depictions of violence that may be upsetting for some readers, a slightly different warning. Which I'm excited for. Last chapter was really good. Okay, not only was last chapter really good, last chapter was what I've just been wanting from Tower of God, what I always want from Tower of God. It was incredible. Definitely my favorite since coming back from the hiatus. The fight was great, or the fights were great. But not only were the fights great, we got so much like character development and world building going on through the things that these characters were saying and doing, and I absolutely love that. Because, like I've always said, Bomb is one of my favorite characters. I absolutely love him. He's the main character, but he isn't the only character. Some of the stuff that I've appreciated the most from the series in the past is the world building and the character development of all these side characters that had so much to the story. So getting a chapter as good as last chapter was amazing. Especially when we're like being presented such a good story in the sort of vessel of this game. Like, it's being packaged up in the form of this game, which is really, really creative and fun. I love the Cat Tower so far. And not only do I love it so far, we've barely even scratched the surface of what's going on inside the Cat Tower, and we've seen next to nothing about the stuff that Bomb and Yama are doing aside from the very little we saw at the beginning, just telling us, you know, hey, these are the basic rules. Aside from that, we haven't even seen like what Evangel's doing basically at all. Same with Calavan. So yeah, I'm excited, and I'm also, just from last chapter, already a big fan of Hiracha now. I really like the feline people's version of transformation, their beastification. The resurrection is very, very cool. So either way, let's just start reading chapter 489. Alright, we're starting off again with Hiracha. According to what I was told, okay, so we're just same old, the recap from the end of last chapter. You were supposedly a very rare genius, even among the 10 great families. I guess that was just a bunch of rumors. Alright. Oh, I'm so hyped for this. Because again, like as I've mentioned multiple times, like Yuan Sung is, for a long time, was my favorite character. Now it's like kind of a toss-up between Yuan Sung and White. But yeah, getting to see more Yuan Sung is amazing. Before joining Yusracha's army, Hiracha didn't belong to the Lopobia family or the felines. Okay then, so this is something that I think we got hints of before, that some of the feline people could have been like made into feline people. He belonged to a minority known as the Rishangs. Hey, I'm back, and I'm a ranker now. You're back, congratulations. The Rishangs have their own particular mark on their face. Perhaps because of that mark, most people viewed them with fear and suspicion. Conversely, some collectors also hunted them because they liked the mark. They had to get stronger to defend themselves and hid somewhere more isolated. Then one day, the felines invaded their remote village. The felines began slaughtering the Rishangs with their overwhelming military superiority. Caught off guard by the surprise attack, the Rishangs were either killed or taken prisoner. So again, more development on what we know Zahard's army's been doing. Hiracha, the leader of the Rishangs and one of their few rankers, tried his best to fight off the felines, but he wasn't strong enough to fight them by himself. But Yusracha had been keeping an eye on him, and right at a critical moment, Yusracha stopped the battle and approached him, and made an offer. He said that he would stop the battle, stop killing the Rishangs, and let them run away if Hiracha became a feline. At first Hiracha refused, saying it was a ridiculous offer, but Yusracha told him to look behind him. Behind Hiracha were the remaining Rishangs. They trembled with fear as they looked at Hiracha. Hiracha couldn't forsake them. Again, I'm just becoming more and more of a fan of him, and it's going to be interesting to see how he turned from this leader of the Rishangs into seemingly one of the most like gung-ho active supporters of what Yusracha is doing. Ultimately, Hiracha accepted the felines' power from Yusracha and became one of them. Then, he joined Yusracha's army and vowed to fight for them. In the army, Hiracha used his outstanding talents and feline power to great effect. He achieved victory wherever he went. He sometimes felt guilty about killing other races in a similar situation to his own, but he had a reason to fight. With each fight, Hiracha's status increased, and he amassed wealth and honor that most people couldn't even dream of. But Hiracha used all of that wealth to rebuild the village of the Rashangs who ran away from Yusracha. Hiracha's huge investment helped to rebuild their village and enabled them to prosper. Advanced rankers in the army were unbelievably wealthy. So this is interesting, showing how Hiracha's willing to sort of slaughter or enslave other races that were in a similar position to his own in order to sort of build up and advance like his people. So interesting and really, 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 really complex. Getting into, again, really deep themes of all of these different races within the tower and the idea of Zahard's colonization, like just getting into things like colonialism and what's happening to all these different races because of Zahard's army. As a result, whenever the Rashangs needed something, they started asking Hiracha for it. At first the requests were few and far between, but as Hiracha granted the requests, everyone began asking him for more and more. They didn't train themselves or work as hard as they used to. They were no longer a persecuted but proud race. The Rashang village became filled with pleasure-seeking, lazy people. Whenever they needed something, they made no effort to acquire it themselves. They always turned to Hiracha and asked him for it. As time went on, Hiracha began to feel burdened by the Rashangs. He had to fight more battles in order to satisfy their countless demands, and as a result he became used to being with the felines and his troops in battle. Without even realizing it, Hiracha gradually became more and more feline. When he finally noticed this, his body and mind had already passed the point of no return. Hiracha tried to avoid turning into a feline, but he had to keep fighting battles, and over time there was no way of stopping the transformation. Eventually he began eating, behaving, and sleeping like a feline. This is such an interesting backstory. This is so cool. Like, even though he didn't want, I mean, of course you're obviously reading it along with me here, but so I don't need to re-explain what we just read, but I don't know, just the idea, of course, he didn't want things to be like this, but it was something inevitable given the life he had to lead. The less frequently he saw the Rashangs, the more he distanced himself from them, and a long while later, an incident occurred. When Hiracha began reducing contact with the Rashangs, some Rashangs felt that Hiracha had betrayed them and worried that he had sided with the felines. Ultimately, the corrupt Rashang leaders gathered and held a meeting, and one of the leaders made a rash proposal. He suggested that they tell Yusracha that Hiracha betrayed the felines and had been helping the Rashangs, and asked him to get rid of Hiracha in exchange for accepting the Rashang leader as felines. Okay. So they basically just wanted to replace Hiracha with a new, more loyal to them Hiracha. Okay. What I was thinking, though, looking at this panel, is I wonder if we've seen other characters with marks on their face that were Rashangs, but we just didn't know it yet. It, makes me want to look back at past characters, you know what I mean? Surprisingly, this absurd proposal was supported by the majority of the leaders, and the Rashangs ended up sending a representative to Yusracha. The representative had revealed that Hiracha had been deceiving the felines and helping the Rashangs the entire time, and asked him to accept them as felines. Yusracha had no reason to accept such a proposal, of course. That tongue of yours reeks of lies. But of course Yusracha probably wants to see this play out in the most fun way possible. In response to the Rashangs' offer, Yusracha cut out his tongue right then and there. Having heard about the incident, Hiracha quickly rushed over to Yusracha, but it was already over. Yusracha told the flustered Hiracha that he already knew about everything from the start, but turned a blind eye to it on purpose. He said that if Hiracha didn't completely sever his ties with the Rashangs, Hiracha himself might be in danger. Again, like I mentioned last chapter, what I love most about this right now is Hiracha easily could have been just some random background jobber that gets taken down. He could have easily been like a cool Nasam K or something. But we are getting so much development. I love it. I miss getting this level of development for all these side characters. And this is just for Hiracha, you know? I love this. And not only, again, not only does it do us as readers the service of building up Hiracha as a character so much, importantly, it builds up Yusracha a lot, who is one of the main antagonists right now, and it builds the world further. So again, this chapter is like, we're barely even like, oh well, you can't see that far off to the side. We're barely even like maybe a quarter of the way through, and this has been like an excellent chapter so far. Given a choice between saving himself or his race, in order to prove to Yusracha that he was a loyal feline, Hiracha vowed to kill all of the Rashangs himself, but he was lying. That night, Hiracha and a few trustworthy subordinates took some of the hostages from their previous battles, dressed them in Rashang clothes, drew the distinctive Rashang mark on their faces, and slaughtered them all. That night, the land in front of the Rashang village was covered with blood, and Hiracha sent Yusracha a picture of the bloody scene, buying himself some time. At the same time, he evacuated all of the Rashangs in his hometown to another place. Hey, I mean, with the plan that they were on board with, I'm not saying slaughter them. Of course I'm not. I'm not saying genocide them, but like, he could have like, at least saved the not messed up and evil ones. And been like, you know, it's less of a chance of Yusracha finding out and catching us if we, you know, at least take out some of the evil, Rashangs. I was about to call them Sharangs. I was like, hold on, let me make sure I'm not getting that wrong. At the same time, he evacuated all of the Rashangs in his hometown to another place, and he and some of his most loyal subordinates snuck away from the feline army. Then they rejoined the Rashangs, loaded them into the floating carrier they had prepared in case something like this happened, and quickly left the area. In the floating carrier, Hiracha hoped that he could forget everything that happened with the felines and make a fresh start. He thought that if they could settle somewhere new, he and the Rashangs would go back to their old selves, but he was wrong. This is where the problems began. A few of Hiracha's loyal feline subordinates were on board the carrier. Over time, the relationship between them and the Rashangs began to deteriorate. The Rashangs didn't want to be led by them since they were felines, and they demanded that the felines give up all their special privileges. But there was nothing they could do about it. They needed the feline warriors both in battle and for maintaining the floating carrier. Besides, these dedicated subordinates had risked their own lives to go with Hiracha. But the Rashangs who were the majority on the carrier strongly opposed them, and in the end Hiracha had to tell his feline subordinates to give up some of their wealth and power. Even after that, the Rashangs continued to take away the feline status and wealth bit by bit, just like they did to Hiracha. The felines became more and more unhappy, and the whole system began to shake at its foundation. Hiracha couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was going to happen. Everything he had been trying to avoid was now happening here all at once. The floating carrier was meant to be a way of getting away from everything and making a fresh start, but it soon began to feel so heavy that it might sink at any moment. This is legitimately the best chapter of Tower of God I've read in such a long time. I love this chapter so far. It's just some big side story, info dump, lore dump, but I am loving it so much. I love this kind of chapter. It's just really, really good. I can't remember the last time, like, I've loved a ton of chapters recently, like, especially the White versus Galavan chapters. But yeah, this is just so good in, like, such a special way that I feel like we haven't seen enough from Tower of God lately. I guess we got chapters similar to this with Dewan's backstory, but to me Dewan's backstory wasn't as interesting as this. His uneasy premonition became reality much sooner than he thought. The felines who had continuously given away everything they had finally couldn't take it anymore and rebelled, and some of the Rashangs were killed. The Rashangs used this as an excuse to demand that the felines be completely kicked out of the ship. But the felines apologized, but the Rashangs refused to forgive them. In fact, maybe the death of their fellow Rashangs wasn't actually that important to them. Haracha knew the real reason why the Rashangs were so angry. It was because the felines had more than them. At some point the Rashangs could no longer stand it. If anyone had even a little bit more than them, they developed a habit of demanding equality, but they made no effort to make things truly equal, because Haracha had simply granted all of their impossible demands until then. The felines eventually became tired of this and left the carrier, and Haracha couldn't stop them. Without them, there was no one to operate and manage such a massive carrier, but he couldn't ask them to stay there any longer when they had given up everything to follow him. But the Rashangs, unaware of the implications of their departure, held a feast to celebrate. They thought that they would finally have the status and wealth that the felines had enjoyed. Of course, not a single one of them knew how to operate the enormous floating carrier or how to fight their enemies. A cold sweat ran down Haracha's back. So is he going to slaughter them and be like, you know what, Haracha, I told you I'd do it. Ultimately, the floating carrier will sink. Even after landing the carrier, the Rashangs will fail to acknowledge reality and will go extinct after they've finally taken everything from Haracha. Of course, the old Haracha might not have minded going down with his own people like that. He would have avoided using his feline power, even if it killed him. Defending his race would have been his most rational goal. He would have joined them in their madness without hesitation. But not now. Over time he began seeing his people, the Rashangs, more objectively. He found himself standing somewhere between the Rashangs and the felines, like he was caught between two poles of a magnet. Maybe he was the one who had changed, not the Rashangs, and maybe it was his own fault that the Rashangs had ended up like this. Yasracha was right. If he doesn't choose one of them, either the felines or the Rashangs, this hell will never end. In the end, he would have to abandon one of them. And in that moment, Haracha made up his mind. He extended his long claws, the symbol of the felines, and in order to cut all ties between himself and the Rashangs, he turned his back on them. This chapter is so incredibly good. That evening, the Rashangs' floating carrier turned red like a sunset proclaiming the day's end. Haracha then abandoned the floating character and returned to Yasracha's army. He would now be a feline forever. The only thing from the Rashangs that he had left was the scar on his face. And again, calling it a scar instead of marking. This is a brilliant chapter. This is so good. Now we get back to Yuan Sung falling. Watch out. Behind you. What? What's that? Oh, was he blocking the acid like he had done with the water before or something? The acid is gathering in one spot. This isn't good. And then it all explodes outwards. He's trying to escape. That bastard. How the heck did he concentrate the acid in one spot like that? With that much acid, he could actually hurt me. What's wrong? I thought you were a division commander in Zahard's army. Are you afraid of a little attack like that? Ah, or can you not defend yourself against acid because you're too small and light? What did you just say? I thought maybe I couldn't block your attacks because you're so fast, but I was wrong. You can instantly reduce your body's size and weight to almost zero. That's how you dodge my attacks. And you look so much faster because you got smaller. Isn't that right? I knew there are people who can compress themselves, but I've never met someone who can make themselves as small as you. I'm surprised. That's a really cool application of a power we've known, like, basically since the beginning of the series. Like, we've seen before cool uses of it, like Rack shrinking himself to dodge an attack and then going back large to attack again. But we've never seen it like at this level. Compression used not just to make yourself smaller like Rack or Evankel, but I mean, his power might not be exactly the same as a compression license, but using basically that same power in this, like, offensive capability. It's so good. What the hell are you talking about? He goes for another attack. But of course, like what Yuan Sung was bringing up there, he's super fast and super strong offensively, but his defense is like crap because of it, essentially. So if he can manage to get a hit in, he can do a ton of damage. I knew it. Something didn't make sense. If I was hit from a direct attack from a high ranker, it should have killed me instantly, yet I'm still standing. I didn't notice it before because you were so quick and there was so much light everywhere. But when you compress yourself, your attack power and defenses also get weaker, don't they? One of the tower's rules is that all abnormal abilities come with risks. Maybe you can't control Shinsu then. You seem to have figured it out, but there's nothing you can do. Whenever a villain says that, you figured out my power, but it doesn't matter anyway, never a good sign for them. You can't attack me or defend against my attacks anyway. Even if you attack me with acid, just like now, I can just avoid it. It may take some time, but you're going to die. Wrong. You were doomed from the moment that I figured it out. Because now, I'm going to gather all the acid in this place over there. Jeez, he's just absorbing it all in. That's a really cool panel, too. What an excellent chapter. Like, that entire backstory felt like, before this hiatus, that could have been like 2 chapters worth. And it was so incredible. And now we're getting this fight, which is great. Like, more of this fight, which is great. Over there, what are you up to? That Shinsu has the unique ability to pull anything towards it. Anything. It's called a black hole. And just like a black hole, it sucks in everything around it. Its only downsides are that there are a lot of restrictions in terms of its power and how big I can make it, and I can't stop it once it's been activated. Come to think of it, it's kind of like your beastification. Hold on, sorry, just checking my recording. But even with a little area like that, it's more than big enough to gather all the acid in this place and cover you with it. Brace yourself, you're going to get sucked into it too. Sucked into it soon too. You're much lighter than the acid right now. Damn it. And of course, this leaves him stuck in a place where if he's in his full-size form, he's not going to be able to use the compression to dodge Yuan Sung's attacks. But if he goes into his compression form to try to dodge the attacks, he's going to get sucked into the black hole. Damn. He starts getting sucked in. Damn it, I have to get out of beast mode, but the acid just keeps coming, and of course he can't force himself out of the beastification. It looks like he's planning on gathering all the acid in this place, but according to the rules of the game, the acid in the cat tower has a high enough concentration to hurt even a high ranker. If he keeps surrounding me with acid like this, I won't last long. How the hell can you control Shinsu like that? I'm a man of many secrets. Stop messing around. If you gather all the acid in this place here, you'll get yourself killed too, you idiot. This is suicide. Suicide? What do you mean? I have a way out. What? What's that? And he's captured the mouse. The mouse? But how? You didn't think I actually killed the mouse, did you? Why would I do that? I pretended to shoot the mouse with a Shinsu cannon, but I really captured it in a Shinsu bubble. I made it as sturdy as possible, but I was afraid it might melt soon because of the acid. But thankfully you fell into my trap sooner than I expected. You son of a bitch. You're messing with me the whole time? Of course. I've always been a con artist. You called me a hypocrite, right? You were right. But I'm not a hypocrite because I pretend to be nice. I just really want to tear down this world that Zahard has created. I wasn't helping the weak. I wanted to encourage those who dislike Zahard to draw their swords and fight him. I've never taken pity on people who are weak, or have no will to fight like you said, nor have I ever helped anyone unconditionally. I help those who may be useful to me, but I'm more than willing to abandon or turn my back on those who are of no use to me. You know nothing about me, about who I am, why I want to defeat Zahard, or even where it all began. Give me backstory. It's so brilliant. What? Oh my... We're still like, it looks like there's still like a third of the chapter, or like a quarter of the chapter left. This has been the best chapter in I don't know how long. Hundreds of chapters maybe even. You bastard. Who are you? I guess you could say I'm the only person who wants to destroy the leader of the 10 great families for turning his back on morality and choosing lawlessness. Again, we don't know how, like, what any of this means. Like, how did he know about Bomb early enough to send his regular self to the hidden floor and everything? What are you talking about? Well, so long. Hey, wait. And is that... He says, wait. From the way it's like in the center, I would think that's Yusrat or Hiracha getting teleported out, but I'm assuming that's Yuan Sung teleporting himself out. That little jerk. Damn it. He really got me good. Give it to me. We want your body. We don't have a body. Give it to us. Your body. Your arms. You guys again. Your legs. Aren't you tired of this? We want it. How much more do you want from me until you'll be satisfied? Damn it. Give it to us. Give it to us. I'm so sick of you people. If you really want everything I have, why don't you take this disgusting tattoo first? No. We already have one of those. Genius, brilliant, the best chapter in, I don't know, hundreds of chapters, maybe since the Kaiser backstory chapters. Like, holy shit, this is just the best chapter in Tower of God in forever. One of the best, like, in the series as a whole, I would put this up there. Genius, and again, just keeping with that theme of greed, it's so good. End of round. And we see all the people slaughtered by Bomb. Participant Bomb won the battle within the time limit. I didn't think you'd be able to beat their leader in 10 minutes. Maybe I underestimated him, thinks Cage. He's definitely stronger than a ranker. Participant Bomb may continue moving on to the next turn. I won, but I don't feel good about it. They were just fighting for their own freedom. Why would Yusracha make us fight like this? You may now leave the battlefield. Again, I like bringing up that question too. Why is it exactly that Yusracha seems to specifically be the one Zahard is sending out to do this to all of these races? And of course, if Yusracha didn't want to do it, I don't think he would be doing it in this way. Like, what are Yusracha's real motives, you know? You may now leave the battlefield. Okay. Alright. Now we have him being sent to the next platform. Don't show any weakness. My master is waiting. I've come this far. No matter what sacrifices I have to make, I won't give up till the very end. Oh, so is Yuan Sung gonna get summoned to help Bomb then? I'm surprised the regular managed to clear all the monsters in one turn, but there's still many monsters and obstacles ahead. I wonder how long the regular will last. If he chooses the jumping route to end the game sooner, he might be shooting himself in the foot, because if he goes that route, he'll have to face a monster that even Lord Yusracha gave up trying to control. It's probably not going to be, but I was going to be like, oh my god, is this going to be Yama's father? But, I mean, I highly doubt that. Alright. Lord Hiracha. Lord Hiracha, why don't you just stop now? We're worried you might hurt yourself. You're always fighting fighting in battles for our sake. Yeah, we have plenty now. We don't want to see you wear yourself out for working for the felines anymore. What do you mean? There are a lot of races in the tower much stronger and wealthier than us, not just the felines. We Rashangs need way more money and power if we're going to be independent. I'm going to keep doing whatever I can to make the Rashangs stronger. You should want more for yourselves. Let me know if there's anything you need. If you want money or food or anything at all, I'll fight to get it for you. Again, good intentions, paving his road to hell. I'm going to make our race so wealthy and powerful that no one will ever look down on us again. Even if it takes centuries or millennia, I'll give everything I have to the Rashangs. You can have it all. He starts getting torn apart. Everything. And the tattoo breaks. Why did I help such weak, unambitious people? Because I loved them so much. Because I loved my people. Brilliant, genius, the best chapter since the end of Go to Hell with Bomb versus Joaquin. Just absolutely genius. I could talk for an hour breaking down all the stuff about the Rashangs and their backstory, and Hiracha and his backstory, and all the different themes they used with this. Like, it's so complex. I can't really, like, go all over it here without repeating myself a million times. But not only was that just, again, incredible, we got a really great fight. One of the best fights we've had in a long time, too. Man, the hiatus was worth it for, like, this chapter alone. This was incredible. So much world building, so much character development. One of the best fights, one of the best backstories, I think. More development for Yuan Sung, more hints at what the hell could Yuan Sung be. It's incredible. I loved it. I guess that's it. I really do want to spend a lot more time talking about this chapter in this story because it was so great and there were so many different things we got. But I think I would just be wasting time to do it now, so I'm gonna do it in its own review that's probably gonna be like an hour long or something, because there's just so much to go through with this. So I guess look forward to that whenever I have just hours upon hours to reread through this, take notes, formulate a review, and go through it. But just know that this is probably my favorite chapter since Bomb vs. Joaquin, which I always say is the best chapter, the best, like, single chapter in Tower of God. And honestly, I don't know if this beats that or not. I don't know, like, this is up there. This is like top 5 chapters in the entire series when it comes to just one single chapter giving us so much and at such a high quality. So yeah, high praise for this chapter that I'm like 2 weeks behind on. But yeah, either way, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this chapter and my thoughts. If you've got anything you want to discuss or talk about before I make the review, any ideas that you want to throw at me so it's something for me to think about or something you want me to include or specifically talk about when I do the review, yeah, I suppose that's it. If you want to subscribe for Tower of God much more on the channel, follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. Just ask and I can give you a link. And if you would like to help support me on Patreon to help me keep making videos, it's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. But either way, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.